Hey, this is Ben from Rain Temps. I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up video to the Windsor design workbench from Harbor Freight video that I did. So, for a little bit of context, I'd actually recommend reading this or listening to this first. So I'll try and have this posted first in places. But with this workbench, this is the final product. When I was putting it together, I noticed that there was a little bit of an issue with the drawers. So one of the things that I did is I was building it out and I was kind of like adjusting things to how I thought that they were supposed to be laid out. And that's actually, I'd recommend doing slightly the opposite. So when you get to the point where you're working on putting on the legs and you're working on this center portion underneath here, so this one right here, I would actually recommend laying those out so that you know that they're going to fit together, and probably using one of the drawers as a guide, because I think that what can happen is these sliders or rails can get slightly too close together if you're not lining it up using that as a reference point. So if you are using those rails and that width as a reference point, then it should keep everything else working well together. What I did in this case is I lined it up based upon this. I adjusted, manually cut down that center portion, and I think that that may have been related to the issue, but not solely the issue. So I think that there was some measurement issues on my part with that. Another thing that I did want to mention about this workbench and this as an overall project is if you're planning on getting one of these and if you're planning on putting it together, I would recommend having it as a full day project. So for a little bit of context, I went to Harbor Freight fairly early in the morning. So I was there at like 8:30 or something like that to go pick this up. And then I went to my workshop. And then once I got to my workshop, then I ran around, did some errands, had to get a couple of things, and then I started putting it together. Total build out time for this workbench here was maybe about 2 or 3 hours, but you don't know if it's going to take a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. You may want to adjust things, do things with the width and stuff like that. So I would recommend just setting aside a full day. That way you can kind of go to Harbor Freight at your leisure and then also have plenty of time to put it together, because it really is a great project. And once you do have it put together, then you have something that's going to be really, really handy for building other items. So that's a little bit of context there and just my feedback on it. But I am going to be using this as my kind of initial shop bench, and I'm going to try and do a long-term update later on.